For the second time in school history, the Michigan Wolverines win a national championship in basketball with a 69-63 win over UConn. Jackson, how are you feeling today hearing those words of being national champions in basketball?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty ecstatic for, just I think for the fans, we've been, waiting a long time for this. I think, John Beeline coaching and getting us there in 2013 and 2018, and finally, put the nail in the coffin, definitely, has gotten me just excited and ecstatic about, this whole year, one, two, what's next to come and, what that future holds for Michigan basketball.
Were you feeling pretty confident going into this game? I feel like a lot of Michigan fans where it was a 6.5 point favorite for Michigan. Obviously, kind of Michigan's been steamrolling everyone through
Yeah.
this tournament, coming off of a dominant victory over Arizona. You had to be feeling pretty decent, but was there a little bit nerves as well going into this game too?
I mean, I think, with being a Michigan fan, you're always going to be skeptical of something. I
Yeah.
think, for me, I'm less optimistic and more pessimistic when it comes to these basketball games because, you don't want to get your hopes up. And, we have always found a way to lose, for something. And, even this year with beating Michigan State twice and, winning the Big Ten outright, I feel like I was a little skeptical going into the game, like, okay, what's going to happen? It was the question of, was Axel Lindenberg just going to be healthy, and how was he going to be able to contribute, and our shooting percentage, and I think UConn was a much, much, much more veteran team, and
Yeah.
you could definitely tell with their defensive play style. But I was confident, but there was a little bit of me of what could go wrong, but yeah, I mean, I just think it was just a great old school basketball game.
Oh, yeah.
So
I was just going to say, if I told you that Michigan would go 2 for 15 from three, do you think Michigan would win that game prior to that? Because I don't think anyone expected Michigan to go 2 for 15 because Michigan's been extremely hot and really no one shot the ball well in this game at all. I know UConn shot 27%, but like that's down from their percentage from what they've done the whole tournament as well.
yeah, I mean, UConn's kind of been that 3-point team. I mean, besides us, they've kind of been on that other side of the bracket as the person who can dominate from all aspects. I don't feel like Duke or Illinois could really shoot the three and be more as versatile as what they could. So I mean, hearing that Michigan went 2 for 15 from three, I'd be like appalled. I'd be like, there's no way we win these games because you normally get a three from Roddy Gale, you get a three from Trey McKinney, and those bench guys really carry us from the stats from the shooting percentage
Yeah.
pretty heavily. So yeah, I was definitely surprised on how the how you're even in the game, to say the least. So, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I was just gonna say it was one side of the court as well. It seemed like it was the side that you guys started on, and then you kind of in the second half went cold. It truly seemed like it was one side of the court where no one could shoot, and then UConn in the first half shot really well from the other side, and Michigan only made the first two threes of the day on that side. So it just wasn't a good shooting day for Michigan. You specifically mentioned early on Yaxel, right? Really, he was a big discussion heading into this one. His health. I don't
Yeah.
think he played good at all. And he specifically even mentioned, like, at halftime, he's like, I'm playing awful. And you guys still won. Like, it's just crazy of how bad Yaxo played. But he did have moments in this game where he did contribute in big places and big points.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think definitely just having him on the court, really gave Michigan that edge and that size. I think from defensively, he's just. I mean, you're just able to switch, on and off. I mean,
Yeah.
Michigan defensively switched almost everything, So I feel like, even though Yax didn't play, I mean, I think just the game, just this whole game, just reverted back to old school technique and old school habits of just, mid range layups, free throws and good defense and free throws. But I think what's kind of crazy, and I think why Yaxel and why Michigan did such a great job was because they had been in situations like that,
Yeah.
in the regular season or the Big Ten tournament or even earlier in the tournament. I think of times against Michigan State or times against, a Purdue where you're having to constantly be on. And if someone's not playing well, how can you pick that person up? And I think that goes back to Dusty
Exactly.
Mays. overall kind of theme is just unselfishness. And I think that really allowed different players to shine where, sure, Jackson might only score 6, but Roddy Gale could go on for 15. Or
Yeah.
Morez Johnson went off last night like a freaking animal. And I just think just shows the versatility of the depth and just how, nothing could have rattled them. So I feel like, yes, did Yax will not play as well as he could. I mean, Yax has untapped potential.
Oh yeah.
Untapped. So, but I think, just the preparation of, what they went through during the season really prepared them for that moment.
Yeah, and this was a very, very physical game. Like just the amount of fouls in this game, just the amount of physicality at the rim. Like this was basically, I don't want to say what Michigan exactly wanted. I think it was kind of a little bit of what UConn wanted, but it really truly showed that this Michigan team can win in multiple different ways, right? I really think it was
Oh, yeah.
that physicality, but also really the play of Elliot Cadeau. And that's who I want to go into a little bit more because Elliot Cadeau heading into this season, a lot of people were talking about his time at North Carolina, right? Like, can an Elliot Cadeau led team win a national championship? Can they win the big games? And I think we figured out that the answer is yes because Elliot Cadeau shined in this one. His ability to get to the basket, his ability to make shots, his ability to make passes, just plays in general. I was really, really impressed with Elliot Cadeau, not only in this game, but really in the Final Four and obviously this one as well. He obviously deserved winning the MVP, and I thought he was spectacular in this one for the most part.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, I think during Arizona, Arizona was so focused on, a Daimar and those second rebound putbacks, and just that game plan change of putting it off the backboard and having people go and get it. I think, UConn saw that and really, really tried to go after, guarding them on the pick and rolls and being there heavily, because Elliot Cadeau just took it upon himself. I think
Yeah,
for the first half he was kind of feeling it out in the national championship game. He's kind of feeling out what can I do, what can I get. Had some mid ranges, but I feel like second half he really exploited it. And I don't. I mean,
absolutely.
without Elliot Cadeau, I don't. I would go on to say Michigan doesn't win a national championship. I just feel that
Yeah,
Elliot Cadeau did a really extremely good job of just orchestrating who to pass to, who to facilitate, when to drive, and just even I just think he had the confidence just to shoot. I think that game
yeah.
against Arizona for the whole team was a great confidence booster with shots and just not giving up on things. And his pace of play is incredible. Almost reminds me of kind of like a Kyrie Irving, able to pick the pace, able to pass, but also able to to play with a different pace and shoot those mid-range jumpers. And I just think
Yeah.
Elliot Cadeau, Michigan wouldn't be the team that they are. He is like the commander, the general of that offense. So I say, without Elliot Cadeau, there's no national championship.
Yeah, and he did a really good job of not only attacking the basket, but getting UConn in foul trouble in this game. You mentioned like Solo Ball. He had 4 personal fouls. Silas Demery had foul trouble. Guards for UConn were in foul trouble all night. Really, the only player that UConn had that really wasn't ever in foul trouble was Alex Karabit. And really, in my opinion, him and Terrace Reed were probably the two best players for UConn. Maybe Braylon Mullins as well. He started hitting some shots later down in this game, but UConn was never really able to get things kind of going offensively. And I think you obviously have to give Michigan a ton of credit defensively. This is a really elite defense. You obviously saw that their size, their athleticism was a huge part of that, but UConn wasn't able to get anything going offensively, especially because they were in foul trouble a lot. And that's solely because of Michigan being able to really play that physical style, attack the rim. And one thing that Michigan did really well throughout the season in this game is when they did that offensively, they forced fouls. When UConn did that offensively, Michigan did a really good job of not fouling. And you really saw the difference of this whole season in this specific game for both of these teams.
Yeah, I think Michigan learned from that Arizona game being a foul trouble is, puts you kind of back against the wall. And I think maybe Dusty Magley highlighted that, but the defense was incredible. I
Yeah.
feel like, UConn really didn't have as many, versatile players, two-way players, that can play defense, can play offense, and so I think, with that, going back to, Braylon Mullins, I just think he's a spot up shooter. He's just a one dribble shoot guy, and no one's really been able to test that. And when he's forced to drive and forced to pass, it just threw all these guys off. And I just think Michigan's defensive ability to switch and their
Yeah.
rebounding ability. I feel like a Daimara, was kind of the unsung hero in the boxing out because, or whether Mraz Johnson, boxing out those first guys and those second guys and allowing the guards to come in. And I think, you know, that aggressiveness from all five people on that team being able to rebound and get out in transition really put UConn off. And
Yeah.
I think Michigan, going back to what I said about the first half kind of feeling things out, is once they got in foul trouble, Elliot Cadeau saw that. Elliot Cadeau could not only exploit, their defense for himself, but also his teammates. Namari Burnett can spot up shoot, but can also drive in the freak athlete. Rodney Gale, same thing. Jackson
Yeah.
Lendenberg, same thing. And you have to always be constantly aware of those, the versatility of everybody. And when you're in foul trouble, you're kind of hesitant, and that split second matters, whether you're driving, whether you're shooting, and
Yeah.
allowed for a lot more, chances. So.
Yeah, and when you're driving, obviously you're going to get fouls, but there was one big moment that I think completely changed this game, at least momentum for the most part in the first half, was the hook and hold on
Yeah.
a Daymara. You had UConn that was right there. I believe UConn was up to, I think it was 25-23. At
Mhm.
that point, you have a hook and hold on Alex Caravan. You obviously have him making both free throws, taking the lead after that. It really seemed like things dramatically changed after that moment. Did that feel pretty accurate to you as well? It kind of felt like you kind of had things kind of going a little bit their direction
Yeah,
before it
I
happened.
mean, they definitely had things going. I think that was definitely a turning point. I think for UConn, and I think it really showed how Michigan was going to respond
Yeah,
to that. Because I feel like especially for a national championship game, the officiating was pretty good, and I think it was pretty spot on. And they were really technical about what went down in the paint. And I think after that, I feel like UConn was just kind of like, all right, like kind of in a rut from like shooting and really couldn't get ahead, and it really pushed them to get out ahead of a lead and allowed
yeah,
Michigan to see, okay, are we gonna? It's fight or flight. 'Cause it could have got bad, real ugly, especially with how we were shooting. So I feel like that just roughened and tightened the tension on the rope between the two teams and what was at stake. It was like, okay, they kind of got the memo of how the game was going to go, and so
yeah.
it was just a true back and forth.
Yeah. And I think you have to give UConn a ton of credit as well because when you have that type of moment, especially early on in the NCAA tournament against Michigan, Michigan would just go on a 9-0 run and kind of end things, right? Like they would go into halftime up double digits. Teams would kind of slowly start to fight back, but then Michigan would go on another run. You kind of didn't allow that, and I think it really made things a little bit more interesting down the stretch. And at one point, I believe it was about like 30 some odd seconds left. It was a 4-point game, and it seemed like maybe UConn was going to pull a little bit of a magic trick again. Did you think like you're sitting there like not again, like we can't let this happen, we can't beat Duke? Or were you pretty confident kind of going down the stretch that you're like, okay, we can get a stop, we can make free throws, maybe this comeback isn't going to actually happen?
Yeah, I mean, Michigan has been a great second half team all year in those big games. I mean, you're talking about both games against Michigan State and Purdue going on those runs around the 8 minute, 7 minute mark to get ahead to make the other team feel like they have to play up. And I feel like that's when Michigan's intensity and attention to detail just skyrocketed.
Yeah,
Um, and I mean, I was sitting there in the booth of Buffalo. I was my head with my hands on my head, like, oh my goodness, is this going to happen again? Like, please, no, we've worked so hard to get here. Just don't throw it away.
yeah,
But I mean, I think that's why, Michigan did all the things they've done before it. And again, why their season prepared them mentally and physically for those moments. So, I mean, I was definitely a little nervous because you never know with Dan Hurley and you never
yeah,
know, I mean, it's March. It's March Madness. Anything can happen. And I think I really got nervous when Roddy Gale missed both of his free throws and they came down and just chucked up one. I'm like, oh boy, it's going to be a 1 point game.
yeah.
So that was definitely, I'd say, a little bit of luck, but also, definitely some skill and preparation.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Dan Hurley is an absolute like wizard. He just somehow finds ways to win games. You have Alex Caravan, maybe
Um,
one of the winningest basketball players in college basketball history. Could have won his third national championship at UConn. Obviously didn't, but like it was really a couple points in this game. We mentioned obviously the hook and hold, but to me, every single tipping point that could go one way or the other, it went Michigan's way. And I think that was a big part of this win. And you mentioned a tipping point towards the end. UConn had a real good chance of cutting it again. Missed a layup, great defensively. You have Trey McKinney hitting a big three down the stretch. That had to be kind of a cool moment seeing not only a freshman that came in, not someone that transferred, but someone hit that shot to really kind of give you a little bit more comfort towards the end, knowing that, like, hey, he's a big time shooter. He's a guy that's going to make a play, and obviously gives you confidence going into next year as well. But I thought that was another moment in this game where it's like if UConn makes that layup, if Michigan doesn't make that three, we could maybe be talking differently on this episode.
Yeah, I definitely could. I just think even in that span of 2 minutes, it was turnover after turnover, miss shot, and just no one could get anything going. And I think when you're down as for UConn, you have to capitalize on that. And I think that's where kind of Michigan caught a break, but
Yeah,
their hustle and their ability to capitalize on those moments, I mean, especially in football, you kind of talk about 4 or 5 moments in the game that can just you never know when they're going to come and they can change the course of a game. I feel like the same thing with basketball. When you're in those last 5 minutes, everything is so crucial. And when it got down to it, that 2 minute mark, that 1 minute 30 mark, and you know, they play really good transition defense. I thought Michigan's transition defense was amazing.
yeah,
And just their ability to create, offense and create control based off chaos. And, to me, it was just, I was just praying it went in because it was just a dagger and it was just a
yeah.
dagger in the heart. And it left UConn just barely breathing and barely, able to be alive at that point. And definitely a lot of happiness and a lot of praise for Trey McKinney and excitedness about what next year is to come and see him, turning into almost like maybe a Darius Acuff, turning into that style of player, them growing up in the same area and playing against each other in high school before, Darius went to IMG. But I can definitely see him turning into that type of guard where he can not only dribble, be a maestro at the same time, pull up and shoot.
Yeah, he was a big part, especially when Elliot Cadeau was in a little bit of foul trouble as well. Michigan really didn't have a quote unquote pure point guard, and Trey McKinney was kind of that. Yaxel was a little bit of that. Obviously, wasn't 100% healthy, so maybe he didn't have the explosiveness that he truly needed. But there was moments in this game where Trey McKinney was absolutely massive. You mentioned obviously transition defense. I thought both teams did a really good job with transition defense. I think UConn did a good job for the most part, not allowing Michigan to kind of get out and running. Michigan did the same thing with UConn as well. And I just thought this was really a great overall game of basketball. And you really truly saw two great teams, two great coaches, obviously, as well, going at it. And someone had to win, someone had to lose. And the Big Ten snaps its national championship streak with Michigan winning its second ever national championship, like I mentioned earlier. So just a great game, honestly,
Yeah.
between both of these teams. This was the type of game I was kind of hoping for. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more of a competitive game. Obviously, from your end of things, you would probably love to see a comfortable like 20, 25 point win. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as long as you get the win, though.
Exactly. As long as you're 1 point above your opponent, I think, what I loved about this game, I think, the unsung hero was definitely Morez Johnson Jr. I mean, being able to like get those putbacks and to be able to rebound, I think in the beginning of the game really set apart and really gave them that edge. 'Cause otherwise, I think they'd be down 10, 50 points with the shooting that we had. And
Yeah,
I think for, a true basketball fan and not just someone who wants to see points and see what modern NBA looks like is just points and scoring, I think this really took it back to old school roots of, rebounding, passing, team effort,
yeah,
and I think it was old school basketball and it was, a dogfight. And I just feel like we were the tougher team.
yeah.
But I mean, hey, go blue and we won.
And also making free throws as well. Making free throws, getting to the line. That was another huge part of this. If Michigan struggles from the free throw line, we got real uncomfortable conversations happening with about a minute or two left. And it almost caused that as well for missed free throws. But Michigan did enough with their free throws offensively, defensively, did enough. Roddy Gale, I thought, had a couple moments in this game. Didn't put up a ton of points, but Obviously, I think that putback dunk was an absolutely massive one. Mario Burnett had a few moments in here as well. But yeah, just a really great physical, kind of old style type basketball game. And I think a lot of people appreciated that. And obviously, UConn fans are not super happy to this day. Obviously, Michigan is thrilled, and that was the end of the basketball season. Kind of a crazy basketball season. Obviously, incredible season for Michigan, incredible season for UConn. Any last thoughts on this game? Just
Yeah, I
anything in
mean, I
general?
think the biggest thing to take away is culture. I mean, if you look at Duke and, Caden Boozer and, the star that the Boozer twins are, or you look at, any other major team like a UNC with Caleb Wilson, you know, those teams really highlight that star player and really put all their attention to that player, and I can tell, the personal egos that there was, or like a Darius Acuff, not that the culture of Arkansas is bad or culture of anything else is bad, but it's just you really saw what it means to play as a team, especially
Yeah.
with Michigan. And I felt like UConn was playing as a bunch of individuals, and Michigan was playing as a team. And I just think the culture that Dusty May has really shined through that. Okay, you can still bring in five transfers, and everyone's raving, oh, transfer for this. Okay, it's time to move on from the old ways of basketball. It's turned semi-pro now for college, and this is what it is. But you've also proven to supplement the old ways of basketball and having a great culture and teams that play for themselves. I mean, not caring who scores, just wanting to win and having that unselfish mindset, and that the creams can rise to the top no matter what. And as long as you believe in yourself, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Definitely shine through, and I think that's the overall theme and message of what 2026 is for the basketball calendar year is just culture, and that how you have to be a team to really win those moments, and it really shines through.
Yeah, and Dusty May was able to create a roster of extremely athletic, extremely gifted, extremely talented basketball players that truly bought into what he was selling, what he was trying to do, and obviously led to a national championship, led to a great season overall. And just want to say congrats again to Michigan on the national championship. Congrats to you as well as a fan. I'm sure you've been having fun the last day. I'm sure you'll probably continue to have fun going into football season. Obviously, college football season is upon us. Basketball is officially done, but yeah, man, thanks for joining. Really hope you're able to have fun, enjoy talking a little basketball with you.
Yeah, no, loved it, enjoyed it, and I hope to be back on again.
Absolutely. And again, congrats to Michigan on the national championship. The season is done. Thanks everyone so much for your support and the NCAA tournament, for all the recaps, all that kind of stuff. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and feel free to like, subscribe, comment as well. Thanks for tuning in, and tune in to the next episode.